And before we continue with today's session, it is important that we do an acknowledgement of traditional lands. Royal Roads University acknowledges that the campus is located on the traditional lands of the Chaseten, Esquimalt, and Lekwungen Songhees ancestors and families. It is with gratitude that we now learn and work here where the past, the present, and the future of Indigenous and non-Indigenous students, faculty, and staff come together. Welcome. So today's session is the Bachelor of Arts in Professional Communication, and with me today I have Dr. Chaseten Remillard, Associate Professor and Head of the on-campus BAPC program. And I want to mention right now, when we say BAPC, that's our shortened version of the Bachelor of Arts in Professional Communication. So we'll be throwing that word around throughout the rest of today's session. So now you know the definition. And we also have Dr. Geo Takach, who is our professor and a head of the blended BAPC program at Royal Roads University. Thanks, Geo. And my name is Emara Angus, and I'm an education specialist. We also have Deanna, who is part of our enrollment team, monitoring the chat, and we have Jackie Lee, who is a BAPC program associate, who is also here to answer questions. So we have a whole group of people here to support your journey. And it looks like we also have some people that are joining from Whitehorse, -20 and snowing. Chase says he's from Barbados, but I don't believe you're there. It looks like that's your home office in Victoria, BC. But we do have somebody from Oh, I see. You were making a joke about somebody coming from Barbados. Got it. Wow, that's wonderful. I wish I was there right now. Well, welcome. Okay, well, we'll keep going. And I'll read the chat from the top to the bottom instead of the bottom to the top, and that'll make more sense when I'm referencing it. So I'll do that moving forward. And agenda, so get to know one another. Let's do a quick poll. So I will actually invite everybody to look up at their screen. I'm going to launch a hello and welcome poll. And so you can cast your vote. And this is just to get a feel of who you are and kind of what your experience is. So the question that we're asking is, what's got you interested in considering communication studies? And you can select all of them. So it's not a single choice. I want to work in the field. I already work in communication, mere curiosity. Communication is where it's at, people, and not sure yet. So I'll give it a few more moments. And if you kind of scroll on the poll, you'll also see, we want to know what program delivery you're interested in. We're going to talk about both options. And so the options are on campus or blended, which is a combo of online and in person. And if you're not sure yet, that's okay, and that's great. That's why you're here. We're going to explore it. Okay, I'm going to give it a few more seconds here, and then I'm going to end the poll. We're going to see what everybody voted. Okay, the poll is ending. All right, I'll share the results here. It looks like we have a pretty even split between people wanting to work in the field, already working in communication, and communication's where it's at. So that's a good split. And it looks like we also have about 20% of the people in the room looking at the on-campus option of the program, and about 60% blended, about 20% not sure yet. Awesome. Thank you so much for participating in that poll. We're also going to dive in and do a brief overview of the Royal Roads University experience. We're going to talk about our program information, the application process, and I encourage you to ask questions through the chat. So we are located in Victoria, British Columbia. We are the closest nearest cities to Victoria are Vancouver, which is a ferry ride away, or Seattle in the United States, which is also a ferry ride away. So we're on an island. We're on Vancouver Island. Top 3 industries in Victoria are advanced technology, tourism and hospitality, and education. And we are really one of the mildest climates in Canada. We sit at around 6 degrees Celsius in the winter and about 25 degrees Celsius in the summer. It's really a beautiful place to visit. And I actually will invite you to give me a thumbs up if you want to visit Victoria, and then a heart emoji if you've actually already visited the city before. So you can use your reactions feature to do that. And here are some images of our space. So the top left, you'll see our castle on campus. We actually have a real castle on campus. And you might even recognize it from movies such as X-Men or Deadpool, which were both filmed on location. And then in the top right is a bridge in the Japanese gardens. We have a beautiful garden here on campus that you can wander around on your lunch break during your residency, or if you're on campus, you can walk the grounds. We have hiking trails on campus, and we're overlooking the Esquimalt Lagoon, which is the image in the bottom left. And this is a beautiful place to watch birds. I've even seen white swans. I'm sure that's not the technical name, but swans that are white just gliding along the lagoon there. And it's a beautiful place to bird watch. And the bottom right is an image of just the ode to that we have been teaching and learning online here at Royal Roads University for over 25 years. So we've been doing it for a long time here. And I know many of you are wondering why explore Royal Roads University. So we see life as a qualification. So what that means is we have something called a flexible admission, where we will look at your past experience, and that will help us determine your suitability for the program. So we're not just looking at your academic experience. So we really look at the whole picture, because we understand that every single person joining us here today joins us with a different background and has different goals for their future. And we really try and get to know you fast. So profs who know your name, we're getting to know you as fast as possible, because we want to get to know your first name, and you're way more than a student number here at Royal Roads. We have small classes as well, so you'll really get to know your cohort. And learning based on life. So that idea that you're not dividing theory and practice, it's integrated. So what you're learning in the classroom, you're able to apply in the real world the very next day. And I would actually argue that the classroom is the real world. So you're able to really apply what you're learning right away. And you're going to make connections for life. So I know I've been throwing that word around, cohort. So what I mean when I say that is that's the group of students that you're going through the program with. And trust me, you will get to know them and you will stay connected with them for life. They will become part of your professional network as well. And we'll talk more about how we were really built differently from day one. And now I'm so pleased to welcome up Dr. Chaseten Remillard and Dr. Geo Takach, who will be talking more about the program structure of BAPC and introducing themselves.
Well, hi there. Well, I guess I'll start because I'm on the top of this slide there. I'm Dr. Chaseten Remillard, and what Emara was saying about us being more or a different type of university comes even to the way in which people address us. So most students will call us Chase and Geo, even though we do have the credentials to be called doctor. We don't typically get called doctor on Royal Road campuses by students. I'm a PhD in communications from University of Calgary, and been the program head for the on-campus for about 5 or 6 years now. And so I'll be chatting with anyone who has questions about the on-campus program. It's slightly different in terms of its timing. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Geo Takach.
Thanks, Chase. Hi, everybody. My situation is completely different than Chase's. Apparently, I also have a doctorate. I also graduated from the University of Calgary, and I also have been program head for about 6 years, about the same time as Chase. We did not arrive as a set. Chase arrived a year before me. But what drew me to Royal Roads has already been mentioned, the cohort-based learning model. We don't have, if you go to a typical large university, which is actually, I'm at a university in Vancouver right now called UBC that you probably heard of. You can take a program and take a bunch of courses, but with a cohort-based learning model, which I experienced in my travels and actually really did change my life, you go through with the same group of people, and there's more or less a fixed menu, although you can tailor your assignments to very much your own life and your own interests and your own work and your own practice. You do go through with the same people. We do believe in group work as an element of each course. Am I getting ahead of ourselves? Maybe I am just a bit, so I'm gonna rein it in. But I just wanted to touch for openers on those two pillars of the cohort-based learning model and the applied learning. We very much, Chase and I, love theory. We have both taught theory, but how much sweeter is theory if you can apply it to a practical situation to solve a problem, whether it's your own personally, something in a relationship, something in a small organization, a large organization, a government, a planet. It's up to you.
So I'll just take a little bit of an overview for you in terms of the way in which the program is set up. There's two different ways that you can do the program. You can do the 12-month on campus, or you can do the 24 months on the blended option, which is that you have a 2-week residency in year 1 and a 2-year residency in year 2. So you come to campus for 2 weeks, but otherwise the rest of your time is online. And so that's what we mean by when we say on campus, you're physically on campus, and the blended is that you're doing that 24 months with the 2 weeks in first and second year, where you come to campus and meet everyone. And I'll let Geo talk about that experience, because it's a very unique experience. The program is the same. So it doesn't matter if you take the 24 months or the 12 months, we all do the same courses. And we all talk about language, we talk about media, culture, technology. And as Geo was saying, it's really, I call it like a pracademic kind of approach, because it's practice and it's academic and it's brought together. And so a lot of our instructors, a lot of our faculty are practitioners. They might be consultants, they might be people who are working for big government organizations or ministries, and they take a little bit of time out of their week and come and teach. Or they might be academics like Geo and myself, who have dedicated a lot of our time to think about the way in which communication shapes society and shapes our decision making and shapes our collective sort of understandings about what is important and what isn't. So you'll see that the program sort of has a range of courses. There's courses that are very practice-based courses, things in like professional writing or public speaking. And then there's courses that are also very theoretical, like the sort of history of communications from the perspective of digital media. And in the middle, there's these sort of bridge courses that are both practice and theory. So something like a research methods course, where it kind of bridges. And so our students can come in from all kinds of different places. They come in from journalism, they come in from communications work, they come in from other programs across Canada and outside of Canada, and they go a bunch of different places too. They go to work in NGOs, they go to work in big companies and PR firms and so on. So we kind of have an eclectic group of students, which really makes it a unique environment to learn. And we also have a really powerful network when you graduate, because you know all these people in different places. So that's sort of the overview of the program. Geo, do you want to talk a little bit about residency? Oh, you're
Don't
muted.
mind if I do. Thank you. Before I get into the residency, I'll just make a note about the demographics of our respective programs. We have both taught in each other's programs, so I'm speaking from personal experience and observation, in addition to listening a lot to Chase over the years. I learn a lot from the guy. The demographic of the blended tends to skew a little bit older than for the on-campus, because with the on-campus, it's a Full Metal Jacket. You basically come to Victoria and it's your boot camp for a year. It's fairly intensive. With the online, it's people tend to be a little older. Maybe they've started families already, which is not to say on-campus folks can't and haven't. But it's people who are maybe a little further along in their careers. But as Chase said, it's the same content in both programs. The blended model is actually an important part of, along with the on-campus, of the Royal Roads experience, where we try to give you the best of all worlds. We do most of the work is done online, except for a 2-week period in May, in which you have come to campus. The pandemic has driven a truck. I won't say what color it is. Those of you from Alberta may be smiling. Through this method of engagement. So we are giving thought actually in the blended program, frankly, to moving it fully online, which would remove the requirement to come to Victoria for 2 weeks. And there's a lot to be said from coming together in an on-campus intensive and getting through the meat of a number of courses in a compressed period of time. But there are also some challenges with travel and being away from families. So we are playing with that model, or no, playing is too light and frivolous, but we are taking a hard look at seeing what we can do by moving it online. So for 24, that's a possibility. For 23, we are still looking at a blended model, and our students tend to like it. That said, I just went to graduation last week and met our 2020 cohort, which had both their residencies scrubbed by the pandemic, and met them for the first time after working with them, and it was a very surreal and beautiful experience. So it's the same content across both, and sometimes and it's Jackie Lee, our invaluable program assistant, is here. She is hi Jackie. She is a specialist at preparing what she calls completion plans, but there are also other kinds of plans. Sometimes it may be that you need to, for whatever life reason, pull out of a course at a particular time, and then you'd want to pick it up again. You can switch back and forth between the on-campus and the online, and take advantage of another offering for the purpose of picking up that course to complete your plan. That's one nice thing about having common content. But again, the full boot camp in a year on campus, and then it's spread out over 2 years online. And I just want to add one postscript. Chase mentioned the practical and the theoretical. David Black, one of our wonderful colleagues and a big supporter of the BAPC, whom you will likely run into on campus or blended. He puts a third leg on that stool. He says the BAPC is also about creativity. And that comes out, for example, in our multimedia storytelling course, in our public persuasion course, and in the way, certainly in a course I developed called Sustainability Communication, where we mix in an arts-based approach to the final assignment, which calls on you to deploy your creative faculties. But we like to think that creativity runs across the complete study of communication, all the courses that you'll take here, because communication, it is where it's at, as Emara told us at the offset, because no matter what field you end up working in, even if it's not communication per se in your job title, you will be using the skills that you would learn in the BAPC program.
So to continue on that, talking about more specifically the types of courses that we do, I mean, there's a long list of courses that you'll take over the time with us in the BAPC or in the BA Professional Communications. And there's basically 20 courses that you'll take, which are two full years of undergraduate education. And if you're on campus, you do those 2 years in one. And if you're online or blended, you do those 2 years in 2 years with the residencies. And so we kind of arrange them in, Geo and I call them sort of acts. We kind of view them as like acts in a play, right? We don't call that officially, but sort of unofficially, there are sort of these acts. And so the first act, the first sort of 5 courses really is about, I like to say it's that you go home at Christmas because or you go home at the holiday break because I'm the on campus, and so you've come from September to December, and you go home after those first 5 courses, and your aunt says to you, "Oh, communications, what's that all about?" And you have an actual answer to it. So the first opening sort of 5 courses, or the 5 act, the act 1 is really about situating and understanding what professional communication is about. And the next 5 courses, are the different platforms to where communication goes, like how, on what level, on what channels, on what platforms do you communicate. So we talk about digital communication, we talk about public speaking, we talk about, like Geo mentioned, multimedia, storytelling. And those courses then really prepare you to try to understand the ways in which communication is shaped and changed by the medium in which you're using to communicate. And so there's a sort of emphasis on the medium in the second act. Geo, do you want to do the last 2 acts? So the next one is the contexts.
Okay, so context is where you do some of that deeper gazing into all things communication, the things that underpin how society works, relationships among media and technology and culture and society, and how they all influence each other and shape each other, and how that's all done through communication. Global communication is another David Black design special. You'll know what I mean if and when you meet him. But it looks at communication in a global context and issues that arise on a plane that transcends arbitrarily drawn national borders. This is different from our intercultural communication course. It's a different kind of thing. Thanks to Chase, we have set up a course in data analytics, which is the last course that, at least in the blended version that you take. It does come later on in the program, and students have found it valuable. Strategic internal and external communication might be called organizational communication in another university, but that certainly covers the internal part. But the external part will give you foundations in, for example, public relations and media relations. Sustainability communication is something that I developed, and it talks about environment with a healthy dose of social justice and economic justice thrown in. One nice thing about Royal Roads is that it is part of an unfortunately all too select group of universities that have achieved a designation called Ashoka Changemaker Campus, which means that we are passionately committed to and curricularly dedicated to social justice as an imperative, as a shining light to guide us in the design and delivery of our programs. Communication in Indigenous contexts is another one that I co-perpetrated this with an absolutely fantastic individual who is director of Indigenous education at Royal Roads, Russell Shungilawakan Johnston, who is an Anishinaabe gentleman who very, very more than generously has shared his time and his teachings. And in this course, which students have found, well, our goal is that they find, and some have told us that they do it, of life changing as per our university's mantra, because it requires students to position themselves and their relationships to land in relation to their response to Indigenous teachings. Whoops. A lot of people pressing arrows, I think, myself guilty. So we'll look at the fourth act, which is, where we have the big orchestral fanfare and people come out and take a bow at the end, which is basically you when you convocate. Another David Black special is Media and Cultural Studies. It's the first course I taught at RRU. It's a wonderful course where you again learn about how media and culture relate to each other and influence each other. There's all kinds of great stuff in there. I won't try to teach you the whole course right now. This is our intercultural communication course coming up, which is more timely, I think, than ever now, as it's people just seem to really need to get along even more than they have in the past these days, and we hope this course will help. Crisis communication is a very strong practical oriented course with a theoretical underpinning, of course, and that's the benefit of theory I found in learning it. Theory gets a bad rap in the popular public consciousness. It's only a theory, but that's just theory. But no, what theory is it's a lens, it's a way of seeing the world, it's a way of addressing the problem. It's a bunch of tools for your toolkit that you wouldn't otherwise have. I was in a meeting yesterday, last week. The days all seem alike sometimes as you approach the end of the year. And there was a communication issue, and I was able to say, well, fundamentally, this is an issue of uncertainty reduction. And people went, wow, that's deep, that's profound. Well, it isn't. There's an uncertainty reduction theory that is a lens through which you view communication, and it says, for example, that the goal of communication is to reduce uncertainty, to reduce anxiety. That is the primary goal, according to this theory. Different theories have different views on communication, but this lens allowed me to look at this problem and see it as one of having to reduce uncertainty. It's an example of how theory can be applied in practice. And hopefully that was not a crisis for you to listen to as I spring from crisis communication to there. And our last course is the capstone and portfolio course, with which Chase has taught, and along with others. And it's where everything is brought together in your program. It's your bridge. It's your holodeck. No, it's your bridge between. I'm dating myself on really old Star Treks. It's your bridge between your learning at Royal Roads and building the rest of your career, where you're bringing everything together with a dash of theory and a lot of practice into a capstone project. Okay, those are our 4 acts.
Yeah, and the other one that's in there that is the practicum, right? So we also in that last act, you get to work with an organization on the professional experience, right? So you end up being able to take what you've learned in the course and apply it to an organization. So there's so many different places that our graduates go. They go into advertising, into broadcast, technology, international relations, communications, grad school, public relations. I mean, communications really sets you up to go into a variety of different places. And like Geo said, even if you don't necessarily have communications in your title, the skills that you learn in the program are so applicable that, in fact, a few years ago, it used to be, I don't know, I haven't done my research, so I won't say, because we are in the age of fake news, but I know that a few years ago, when they do these broad surveys of CEOs and so on, and they say, what's the one skill that's the most important for you when you hire somebody, communications is always up there in the top 1 or 2. And so communications and understanding how to use communications effectively is a really applicable skill, and more and more, I'd say more and more so, as every single organization now has to be so much more aware of its communications. Social media has really driven communications as a mechanism of connection. The fact that the pandemic really pushed a lot of technologies forward, and now we're in a state in which we have to manage our own personal appearance on camera, right? So there's so many different elements of our lives now that is touched upon with communications, that it's beyond just a discussion of what's on television or in the movies or or interpersonal. It's really invaded and kind of soaked into every sort of aspect of social interaction. It's a mechanism. It's always been that, but now it's even more so. And it's the fastest growing, I know that for sure, it's the fastest growing degree in the United States, for example. It's that people are taking this degree at a higher level than they have in the past. And as a field, it's a relatively new field, right? I think Geo and I were one of the sort of first group cohorts of people who actually could get a PhD in communication studies. And now that's growing in Canada. And now that's growing even more. And so what that means is that, the more that people have this degree, the more that organizations need these positions, the more jobs there's going to be, the more opportunities there are. And so, something like data analytics is now not just for a specialized group of people. It's for the people who want to be it's for people who want people to see their Pinterest, right? So there's so many opportunities to be a consultant, to take these skills and start your own business, to be entrepreneurial, but also to have really powerful impact for things that are important. And one of the courses that Geo teaches in design, he built sustainability communications, but he's very motivated by environmental communications. And if you think about it, you can't legislate people's actions, right? You can, but people will find their way out of it, right? So, you can't watch every single person on the highway to make sure that they have a seatbelt, right? You can't. So how do you get people to wear seatbelts? You have to create communications and mechanisms by which communications inform, educate, and change opinion, right? It's in the same way as armies can't just win on the battlefield, they have to win the hearts and minds. You see that all the time. Right? It's about the hearts and the minds. And that's what communications really at the core, when you start thinking of it as an agent of change, communications at its core is really a tool by which you get inside someone's head and you change the way that they think about something. And that has a really powerful impact on public behavior. So people can dismiss communications as being frivolous, or it's just about being a tactician and just delivering or creating a graphic. But the program is really designed to try to make you into somebody who does those things purposefully and does them in a way that's powered by an ethics of improvement, whatever the ethics of improvement may be for you. But you're out there using communications to make the world better in terms of equity, diversity, inclusion, in terms of environmentalism, in terms of poverty reduction, in terms of even just in terms of making an organization that you believe in and that you work for, achieve its goals, right? So that's sort of the way that we've come to understand communications in the program, and that's sort of the take that the program has on communications. And money, you can use your knowledge to make better bets on your favorite sports team, right? So the endless opportunities for application are there. And the other thing about the cohort, and then I'll turn it over to Geo for final thoughts on this before we get it back to Emara about the practicalities of applying. But the other thing about the cohort is that you meet and know these people very closely. and you aren't just a number, and you know your profs very closely, but you also know the people in the seats or in this on the screens, if you're online or whatever, very well. And so when it comes to somebody saying, hey, I want to have an opportunity in Ottawa, you have somebody in Ottawa who's in your field who says, actually, I've heard of like 2 or 3 job opportunities here. You would be a great fit, right? So that network that is developed through the cohort is an additional, really powerful bonus of a program like this that you don't typically get in a bigger university or in a bigger kind of classroom, because everyone is just shuffling their way through these courses. Whereas here, you're kind of all together working through, pulling in the same direction, and you really know each other, you work closely with each other, and you have that network when you exit. Geo, I think this is our last slide, and then we turn it over to Emara. So you better say your last motivational speech here, and then we'll let her have it.
That sounds good. I'm going to say what I usually say after Chase speaks at meetings, what he said. Just a couple of quick things before turning over to Emara. I won't speak to the careers page. It's been up for a bit. That gives you a sense of the depth and breadth of careers that our grads have gone on to establish themselves in. Before we go to Emara, I just want to give another shout out to Jackie. I hope I'm not putting you on the spot. Jackie Lee, our program assistant. Her portfolio includes helping students through the experience. Chase and I advise, of course, on strictly academic matters, but a lot of the day-to-day, especially the settling into the program, a lot of that heavy lifting is done by Jackie. So Jackie, if you want to say hello, a couple of words for the good folks in the Zoom room, please go ahead. This is your chance.
Okay, thank you, Geo. Hi everybody, my name is Jackie. I'm the program associate for BA in Professional Communication. I've been with this program for almost 3 years. Almost 3 years, yeah, 2.5 years already. As Geo mentioned, I'm the contact person, first point of contact when you have any questions about the non-academic side of for the program. Like you have questions about the schedule or like the completion plan. You want to drop a course, you want to take a break, or when you feel like you need a break, or you want to retake a course or anything like that kind of questions, you can come to me. I'm very happy to join the webinar today. So if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat or get on mic. I'm happy to answer that for you. Oh yeah, go on exchange as well. Yeah, thank you, Chase, for the reminder. If you want to join the exchange program to take a few credits from other universities in other countries, yeah, that's a great opportunity we have here at Royal Rose.
Thanks very much, Jackie. Sorry, this was not scripted. She very graciously allowed herself to be put on the spot. But thank you very much for being here, and of course for all your support of our students and our efforts. So let's stand aside and turn it over to the very wonderful Emara.
Thank you so much, Geo, and thank you, Chase and Jackie. So now we're jumping into the how to apply. So the good news is Geo and Chase and Jackie all have eyes on the chat right now. So if you have questions that are coming up and you want us to explain something a bit more, or we haven't covered something, pop it in the chat because they'll be monitoring and be able to answer. We also have our knowledgeable Diana, who is part of the enrollment team. So ask those questions, and we'll also touch on them at the very end too of this session. We can do a quick roundtable of questions if you have anything unresolved. Okay, so how to apply. Before I go into this, everything is on the website. So I want to say that as a way that if you miss anything that we're talking about right now about the how to apply, we made sure to clearly outline it on the website, step by step, how to apply. So all that information, as well as admission requirements and how to complete your application, are all on our website. So here, as I mentioned earlier, we have flexible admission alongside our standard admission. So what that means is flexible admission is if you don't meet the standard, flexible admission is also an opportunity to enter the program through. And I want to mention that every single application is assessed case by case. So don't ever self-select yourself out if you're like, oh, I'm not sure, maybe I meet the application requirements or admission requirements, maybe I don't. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. Reach out to our enrollment team because they can have that conversation with you about whether or not you have what you need to enter into the program. So for standard admission, it's a completion of a diploma or 60 credits in communication, journalism, business administration, or general arts, including a minimum of 24 second-year credits with a minimum GPA of a B from a recognized post-secondary institution. We also have block transfer agreements. So some of you in the room or watching the recording later, I might have even met you at a college visit recently. So what that means by block transfer is we look at the first 2 years or the diploma that you get from a college, and you can actually take that and transfer that directly into the BAPC program. So we have a whole transfer agreement page on our website. So I highly recommend if you are currently in a college or you have previously done a diploma at a college and you're looking for that block transfer, have a look at Royal Roads University transfers and see if there's anything existing. If not, don't worry, we can always look at your past experience and your background and see if that fits anyway. We also have flexible admission too. So that is normally a minimum of 5 years of relevant work experience in the areas of communication, public relations, journalism, or other related fields, as well as an evidence of having sufficient knowledge, skills, and abilities to complete a demanding academic course of study. We have a language requirement here at Royal Roads University. So English is the primary language of instruction. And if your primary language is not English, you must meet our English language requirements through one of 3 ways. So either holding a recognized credential from an English-speaking country, submitting an official English language proficiency test score report. It's always a tongue twister going through this, which is extra ironic seeing as it's an English language proficiency, but I always stumble over reading the slide. And then third, completing one of our global learning and language center programs. So those are ways to kind of submit proof of primary. See, stumbling over the slide. I can't use words when I'm on the slide. So I'm just going to keep going, but all of our information about language requirements are on our website. Okay, so this is what I was talking about earlier, that awesome transfer agreement. So we have, these are just some of the colleges. I'm sure we have more that you can transfer your diploma into the BAPC program. So I'll hold the slide here for a moment. And you can, if you're wanting to see if your college is on there or what programs, just go to Royal Roads University and go to the transfer agreement. And you can just Google that and it will come up in your search results as well. Okay, I'm going to keep going. So some key dates, we keep this information updated on our website if anything changes regarding the application deadline. Sometimes they shift to give people a bit more time if needed. But for now, if you're looking at applying for the upcoming blended intake, which starts March 27th, 2023, the application deadline is December 27th, 2022. So that's coming up here pretty soon. And you don't have to wait for the application deadline to apply. You can apply right now if you're ready. If you're interested in the on-campus program, the next intake is September 18th, 2023, and the application deadline is June 18th, 2023. So if you're wanting to apply, the first thing you want to do is start up an online application on our website. You pay a small fee of $131, and it starts your application. And then what you're going to do is you're going to submit some supporting documents. And I applied for a program last year at Royal Roads. I applied for the Masters of Professional Communication, or no, not the Masters, not yet. I'm going to apply for the Masters. I applied for the Graduate Certificate in Professional Communication Management. And I had treated my application like an assignment. So I went on the website, I saw all the things I needed to submit, and I just treated it like I was submitting assignments. So you have official transcripts from any past post-secondary education that you've done that you need to have sent from the institution to Royal Roads, you want to submit a detailed resume, and even look on the website. It tells you exactly what information to include in your detailed resume. We're looking at things like work experience, any memberships or affiliations, other post-secondary experience, and things like that. We also have you submit a personal statement or a statement of intent. And this was actually my favorite part of the application, because this is really your why. Why do you want to do this program? Where do you want to go with this program? And what are you going to bring to it? And this really solidified for me why I was applying to the program. I was like, yes, this makes sense. This aligns with what I want to bring to the world and what I want to learn. And then you also have to submit 2 letters of reference. And so this can be professional and academic. And upon request, occasionally a portfolio is requested as well. And we understand that we understand that going to a post-secondary institution is an investment. So we have a whole department of financial aid to support you. So what that means is loans, awards, scholarships, and other fundings. And now is the time to start looking into this while you're considering applying for the program. Go to our website, go to financial aid and awards, and check out the different available options for you. You can also set up a one-on-one appointment with a financial aid and awards specialist to talk about your unique needs. So definitely take advantage of this and start looking at this now. And application support. I hope at this point in the webinar, you realize that we are here to support you from the beginning of your journey right through to the very end. So if you need any support regarding program details or what program's the right fit, application process, anything around admissions and more, please reach out to us. learn.more@royalroads.ca is the best way to get a hold of somebody who can support you. And now I'm going to stop for questions. I'm going to also launch a quick poll here. So have a look at your screen, and the poll question is, did we answer all of your questions? And you can say yes, no, and choice 3 is pop your question in the chat. If you didn't have your question answered, please pop it in the chat. I know that people have been monitoring the chat and entering some answers there. Choice 3, okay, all right.
Emara, I think we have a question from Angela. How is enrollment looking for the next online cohort? Is it highly competitive for spots, or if we meet the needs for flexible admission requirements, is it relatively assumed we can participate starting in, I believe it's March 2023? I can answer part of the question. I believe that we still have spots available for the March intake for the online program. So Angela, feel free to submit your application. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Jackie. And thank you, Angela, for the question. Are there any other questions that I'm missing there that came in? So a question that we get a lot, and just if you could touch on it briefly, Geo and Chase, for cohort sizes, can you talk a bit more about kind of the cohort size for both the online and blended? I know we touched a little, or pardon me, on campus and blended.
So the on-campus is typically somewhere between 25 and 30. There are some years where we have a few more. There are some years where we have a few less. This year we only almost have 20 because it's just a kind of I think a lot of people were waiting to see where the economy is going to go before they decided on whether or not they're going to go into post-secondary. So there's been a little bit of a dip in our enrollment, but typically we have sort of somewhere between 25 and 35. So as I like to say, enough that you can have a good conversation in the classroom without being a number, but also not having to have the full pressure of being the one who talks every single time, right? So you want to have a classroom of sort of 25, 30 people, because you want to be able to have a mix of groups, and you want to be able to have, if there's like 5 or 6 people who are kind of, suffering from the flu, then, then there's the other 20 people who can pick it up. So it's a really good number, actually, is that sort of 25, 35 for a classroom.
And for the people in the program, are they working full time? Are they able to work and go to school at the same time?
So for the on-campus, because we're just talking about the on-campus, I don't know if there are full-time. I know that a lot of people work part-time. I would think you would have to be you would be very busy if you were full-time working in the on-campus, because the on-campus is intensive. It's 1 year. So, you're in the classroom every day for one course a day. This is how we set it up. So you come to campus, you have your class. And so, yeah, you have your afternoons and evenings off typically. But then you have homework and assignments and readings and so on. So most people work part-time. There are some people who do manage to work full-time, or they work full-time sort of at certain points through the program and drop to part-time at certain, so they have a little bit of a flexible. But yeah, everybody has their own threshold of what they can manage, but you would be pretty busy working full-time in the on-campus. In the online, it's different.
So for the blended one, you do find that people are working full-time and going to school at the same time?
In the blended program, Emara, that's exactly what tends to happen. It's more common than not for people to be working full-time. Sometimes our instructors get comments like, hey, remember, we work full-time, it's a serious commitment. The nice thing about it, most of the learning in the blended program is what we call asynchronous, meaning you don't have to be in one place at the same time as the cohort. There are exceptions to that, of course. In my classes, I do like to see live people. So once a week, by poll determined by the class, with the least obtrusive time to meet, sometimes something like a Wednesday evening early, we'll meet for an hour just to connect face to face. And if you can't make it, it's recorded and you can watch it and give comments after. But most of the learning tends to be on your own time. There are discussion boards and you post discussion questions are asked, and then a whole dialogue among the cohort evolves. Much as it might on something like the aforementioned social media, but usually without the invective and the slurs and the slander and all the rest of that, which certainly livens up social media. We don't tend to favor that at Royal Roads. But so yes, common to work full-time or close to it in the blended program. But again, that's a serious responsibility too, right? To do both, because it's a serious commitment either way, whether you're doing 1 year or 2. But life happens. We recognize that, and that's when Jackie and those aforementioned completion plans come up. And it's designed for you, whatever works for you, in light of the options we have in terms of course offerings across the BAPC program.
Thank you. And I saw a question in the chat about Faith, you're wanting to connect with somebody who took an on-campus version of the program as well as the blended version of the program. And I believe we might have done some past webinars as well, where we invite different either students or grads. So we can kind of track one of those down. But if you wanted to send an email to Chase and Geo, they pop their email in the chat there. And for anybody listening to this recording, if you send an email to learn.more@royalroads.ca, we can absolutely connect you with students, alum, whatever you're interested in. So absolutely don't hesitate to do that. And we're coming up to the very end of our session here. So I wanted to welcome a few final words from Chase and Geo before we wrap the session up. If there's any final things you'd like to share with the people in the room today.
other than to thank you very much for coming, and what Chase said. That's it for me.
I'll just say, I'm going to volunteer Geo, because I'm sure he's fine with it, that if there's other questions that you want to ask and you think of them later, you're welcome to send us a note by email about the different programs. And if you're not 100% sure who can answer it, just fire it to both of us. And then the other thing I think is, like, there's never a good time to go back to school, but actually there's never, on the flip side, a bad time to go back to school either, right? So I think if you're thinking about it and you're waiting for that right moment where the skies part and like a beam of light comes down and a path of flowers and whatever shows with the, you know, path to the Royal Roads Castle, that won't happen, right? Because there's always going to be stuff that shows up. I think it's better just to think about whether or not you want to have a degree. And if you want to have a degree, then it's the right time. And Royal Roads really does provide a lot of support to our students, much more so than any institution that I went to as a student. I don't know about Geo, but I know that's the case for me. I know that I still know my student number from my undergrad, because that's all they wanted on the paper, is just the number. They didn't care about my name. So, you know, people like Jackie and Geo and I are really here to, when you're in the program, make sure that you succeed. And we have a very high graduation rate. Typically, people only don't graduate because they've had to delay because of personal reasons, like they had a baby or they got into a car accident and had a concussion and they needed to take a couple months off, right? So these things happen along the way, but that's where the program team and are here to help. So I would say just go for it, apply, and, you know, just take the next step in what you want to do in your life.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Geo. Thank you, Chase. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Deanna. And thank you to everyone in the room today and those listening to the recording later. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out, and hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day today.